Hey folks, Trent and Ty here from Purgatory Ironworks. We have got some cool new videos for you coming out, but before we get started, if you like the work that we're doing here, please give us a like, subscribe, give us some comments. That stuff really helps us in being able to produce good quality content for YouTube. If you really want to help us out, go over to TrentandTy.com. I've got my new book out. If you really want to help us out, go by Patreon, become one of our Patreon supporters, because I depend on you guys to let us continue to not have jobs and do quality blacksmithing content. So you guys, thank you so very much, and here's your video. Hey folks, well, we are excited to get our new season of videos done, and I've got a good series for you today. We're going to be starting off by doing a full set of fireplace tools. These are great items for the beginning smith to actually make and sell, and there's so many different variations on these guys. You really can be just as creative as you want and make some cool stuff. As many of these guys that have been made, pokers and shovels, I'm constantly astounded by a lot of my fellow smiths that come up with just really insanely cool and creative ideas to make these things. But just starting out, they are good practice and they can make you a little bit of money as a hobby smith. Now, for the purposes of this video series, we're going to be doing what's known as a basket twist handle. Now, this is a super fancy one. This is a braided one. That will come later. But for the basket twist, it uses a couple of forged welds. It's not exactly an easy project. It's kind of intermediate, but it's going to give you really good practice. So what you're going to need to start off for this is you're going to need some 1/4-inch round rod, hot rolled, and you're going to need it in 4 pieces, 6 inches long. This is going to form the basket for 1 piece. Now, since we're doing 3, I would urge you to go ahead and cut yourself 12 so you have 3 different bundles. Yeah, that's right. That's math. So 12 pieces of 1/4-inch rod, 6 inches long, and I'm going to show you how we're going to set up and prep it and get it ready for our forge weld. So guys, what I have here is a bundle of these rods that are 1/4 inch in diameter. And now there's a couple different ways to prep these for forge welding. These are a little difficult to forge weld. I'm going to have to show you a couple of techniques on how to really nail this. But the trick here is you need everything held together. Now, if you are lucky enough to have a MIG welder or a stick weld or something else, the easiest way to make this happen is to put a little bit of a tack weld right there and join all 4 rods. That's the easiest, slickest way to do that. But most of you guys out there that are just starting aren't going to have that, so you're going to have to do it the old way. And fortunately, the old way is not too terribly bad. This is a roll of ductile steel wire. You can buy this from any of your big hardware stores. And all you want to do is actually take you a piece, usually about 5-6 inches long, doesn't really matter. And what you'll do is you take your 4 rods, you'll bring this guy up like this, and I'm going to tell you one thing that I actually prefer for this. I'll start twisting it here, but you cannot twist this tight enough by hand to do yourself any good. So you can use another pair of pliers. I usually prefer using a pair of locking pliers. Grab on that little twist right there and simply scrunch down. And you can see it tightens up very, very nicely. This will hold everything into place. Now do this, do snip it. Neatness counts. It will hold everything in place because we're going to need to make 2 forge welds. On the front side, we're only going to forge weld about 1 inch. This will be the area that we're going to lap to our handle. But on the back side, we're actually going to forge weld about 2 inches because we'll fuse this together and we're actually going to forge this out to make the hook that we're going to hang our poker or shovel or our broom by. But that's where you want to start. To get that initial forge weld is going to be the most difficult thing simply because these being round rods, they're going to have a tendency to want to slip by each other. So when you get this thing to welding heat, just don't Hercules that bad boy. You're going to have to finesse it, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You got to finesse it a little bit, get it to stick, and then very carefully work it out. There's nothing brute force about what we're about to do. So let's take this over to our fire and get it ready, and let's forge weld. Now, before we get really going into this project, I'd like to explain something to you. I'm absolutely telling you to make sure and do 3 of these bundles because in past videos, I've always given good information, But sometimes I feel like that I'm not making you a better smith. I know how to do that. I can give you information, but if I want to make you a better smith, you've got to practice. So since we're going to have 3 separate tools, you're going to need 3 separate bird cages to make them. So my suggestion to you, if you're truly concerned about becoming better, is you need to produce 3 good bird cage blanks. If you screw one up, that one doesn't count. Let me say again, you need 3 good blanks done. This may mean that you screw up 10 before you get a good 3, but that is very, very important. One of the most important things I can share with you about doing this craft, and one of the most annoying things I have to deal with, is somebody will do their first S-hook or their first leaf, and that's awesome. You should be proud of that. Take your picture, put it up on your refrigerator. Don't bring it to me and ask me what I think about it, because it's your first one. I am not concerned with your first one, because even without having seen it, I can silently predict it's going to look like hammered poo-poo. What I want you to do is come to me with your 100th S-hook, your 100th leaf, and let me see your progress there, because at that point, you know what you're doing, and I can help you even further by correcting things. I cannot help you by seeing your first one, because it sucks. All of our first attempts suck. So if you want to get good at this, if you really want to learn how to do this, there's got to be practice. So get 3 of these guys. No matter how many you screw up, get yourself 3 good ones. Let's start with mine. Now, of course, since it's a forge weld, we're going to need to facilitate that forge weld. We can do this dry, but it's going to be a lot easier if we use a little bit of this white powdery substance here. Now, there are various names for this stuff. I do believe that one of my apprentices has named our stuff Fusion Cocaine, so we'll be using our Fusion Cocaine, also known as borax, to help the weld. This acts as a flux, helps keep oxidation off of it, and dissolve any oxidation that already may be there. I brought this up to a good 2,000 degree heat. I'm going to hit it with our Fusion Cocaine, let it melt in and back into the fire, and I'm going to bring this up to a light welding heat. Now, again, because these rods are round, they're going to have a tendency to want to slip away. So we're going to have to use 2 techniques to be able to solve that. One, we're going to use very light hammer blows from a very light hammer. Secondly, because it's square in shape, it's going to have a tendency to want to get out of square. We're going to use the step on the edge of the anvil just to make sure that it doesn't get away. You'll be able to see this, and you'll understand when I do it. So let me bring my heat up, and we'll take our first light welding heat. Here we go. Now you see it wants to be a little out of square, so I'm going to put it on that step, and it kind of traps everything. So again, very light hammer blows. I'm just looking to make it stick. I'm not going to hammer it any further than right there, because really and truly what I want to do is kind of square those guys. Again, just getting them lined up. I'm going to hit it with the Fusion Cocaine again. We're going to take a full welding heat, and then again, I'm not going to come in here and caveman it. I'm going to come in with light taps and continue to actually solidify that end. Again, I'm coming in with light blows. And now you can see that we've got a good solid end. Again, that was a light welding heat. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to form the scarf on here. Now, this is not going to be tapered on 2 sides. It's not coming to a point. It's going to come to a wedge. Again, I'll take another full welding heat, a good one this time. That one was a little light. And I'm going to bring this down into a short wedge. And there we are. We are good on that end. Also notice I'm not coming way back here with my hammer blows. That's because the only thing that I want to fuse is right here. So if you come anywhere further back, you're going to fuse your rods, and that's going to make for a very ugly birdcage. So now what we're going to have to do is simply flip this guy around and get this side done. Now you can see that through the holding here that these rods have deformed just a little bit. They've gotten out of square. And that's what makes this particular thing a little tricky, is that you've got to keep those aligned. Now, I can rewire it and help there, but I'm going to think that if I swap my tongs around, I can steer these guys together enough that I don't need to do that. Now, I've been doing this a while, so if you need to, rewire the piece to keep it square. If you're feeling adventurous, then go for broke. Straighten them back up, and I'm going to see if I can't get those to weld in place. Again, I stress, because there are these 1/4-inch rods, they're kind of screwy to deal with. It's going to take you some practice, especially getting that initial tack in there. If you've got a 3-pound hammer, you're not going to do a whole lot. And I say this specifically to a lot of you beginners, because I've seen so many beginners that are kind of more machismo than sense, and they end up trying to work with a 4-pound hammer. A 4-pound hammer is not going to do you any good for this project. A small ball peen like the one that I'm using will serve you much better in getting that initial tack weld than a sledgehammer you're trying to swing and impress all the girls with. Here again, we see very light blows to square those rods. Again, if it gets off, it can go in here, and this gives you a little bit of hammer action into the middle at a diagonal that won't tear it apart. But it looks like that we got a pretty good stick. Now, of course, one thing here is that we're going to get quite a bit more material than just that 1 inch. We're going to come back to about right here, because what will happen is when we fuse all this, when we actually put this on the main rod of our piece, we're going to extend this. We're going to draw this into an actual taper. This will become the hanging hook for the tool, while this scarf will actually attach it to the body of the tool. Now, once you get your first tack weld in there, do be careful. You see the remnants of that wire? If you're not careful, that wire can slide down into your forge weld and fuse in and make quite a mess. So either cut these off and remove them, or make sure they're not going to be in the way of the forge weld as you progress with the second weld. Here we have a full welding heat. And it looks like we've got a good hold. So you can see we've got a little bit more meat coming up here as we did to the front. And it may be a little short, but when I come back in and I'm actually making this piece, I can always fuse a little bit more if I need it. But for all intents and purposes, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to knock off our guide wires here, scrub this thing down, and we'll take a look at what we've done. So guys, if you did your job well, you should end up with something that looks like this. If it's not perfectly straight and kind of bent up and catawampus, it's okay. As long as you got the welds to take, you are in good shape. So now here's your checklist. You need 3 of these in good shape. And when I say good shape, I don't mean that half of it's burned away. If it's burned up or you got problems with it, throw it away and keep doing it until you get a good one. This is going to be more effort than you probably anticipate it to be. That's the reason I started you with this, because this is going to require you to learn a couple things about reading your fire and getting comfortable making these types of welds. But I'm going to leave that for you to deal with, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen next. So in our next video, we're going to go ahead and make our first tool, which is going to be our poker. And in essence, we're going to take our lap piece here. This will be fused onto our shank, and I'm going to show you how to texture the shank and actually make a good looking piece. This will be the basis for the other two of our tools, the broom and the shovel, but this will give you some good practice while you're getting them done. So a couple of passing thoughts as we finish up this particular video. I'm using a couple things that make my life a whole lot easier. So for one, when you're working on this stuff, if you don't have good tongs or a good way to hold this, it's going to be murder. So understand that if you, and this is, you know, I have a lot of people that say, look, I don't have any money at all. Well, if you don't have any money, if you can't scrounge up $30 for the right pair of tongs, you're going to have a bad time. In fact, you're probably not going to be able to make a really good go of this, because specialized tongs for this type of work is really what the job calls for. But if you do have a pair of hollow bit tongs like I have here, one of the other things that you really need to look into are what is known as lock rings, and that's these guys right here. Now, we use a pretty unique set of lock rings because the gentleman that taught me, Jay Reeker, he had a collection of tongs from everywhere, and he didn't make a lot of his own tongs. So in order to have something that fit all the different handle sizes, he would make a series of smaller and smaller rings that would allow him basically to lock onto the end of these tongs whatever odd tongs he had. Being able to hold on to the work without having to keep constant pressure on the handles. Let me explain to you what I mean there. If you don't have these lock rings on to hold this piece, you have to constantly keep tension here. Now that one, that's wearing your hand out, and two, that limits your ability to turn this. Also, if you want to put this on the fire, you can't do that and pick it right back up. You have to reach and grab it again. Lock rings and the proper tongs are critical to doing good, consistent, and non-frustrating work. You're going to see a lot of this in the work that I do here using specialized tools. They are very important. They are something that you need to move towards, and you're going to learn the hard way. If you don't have the right tool for the job, it's going to suck. So guys, if you've done what I asked, you've spent the last couple of days putting everything together, burning a few of these up, but I know it's been frustrating, but hopefully by now you have 3 good blanks ready to go, and you're ready to go to the next video, making your poker. Guys, I'm really excited to be back in the shop doing this high quality content. I'm enjoying it. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next video. Big thanks to all those folks that have been with me for all these years, my Patreon supporters, all the people that have supported me here on YouTube. I could not have done it without you. You guys be safe, and I'll see you in the next video.